Friends, fans, and fine folk, grab your drinks and snacks and come around the campfire for a short rest with me and my friend, the Faye creature. Hello, everyone.
That's certainly one word.
That is one word for it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another short rest. I am joined today by none other than Mendarii, aka Faye.
Hi.
And the levels seem to be great on audio as well. So Kalu Kalay, oh Frabjous Day.
Nice, good for us. What a good job. Yay, pre-checks.
People in the chat can let me know if either of us are too loud. DM Dave's in the chat as well. What up? How's it going?
Imagine there being a DM Dave here. What?
I know, crazy. Hello, D-Techt. How's everybody doing today? Is everybody good? Volume's good? Good. Awesome. All right. So we're, for those who are new to my channel or to Short Rest, it's just like a chill chat kind of a stream. So Mendarii or Faye, which would you prefer me call you through this?
Faye is fine.
Faye is fine because Mendarii feels
my
like
name.
You're calling me my stage name.
Well, Mendarii is sort of like the one that like if people are really used to calling me that, that's fine. Or if like I've never really talked much with them in person, or like had much of a chat outside of like businessy things. A lot of the time, people will call me Mendarii, but like Faye's my name.
Fair enough.
And
Fair enough. So tell me, how should we set up this short rest? How do you like to take your short rest? Should we eat on the go, or are we stopping around a campfire? Are we going into a cave? Where are we dungeoneering? Where do we need this short rest in the first place? Are we on a pirate ship?
I do love me.
Are we underwater?
Pirate ship.
Are we in some sort of Triton village? I don't know. Where are we for this short
I
rest?
like the idea of campfire. After we've been sailing for a long time, we've docked on an island sort of in the middle of nowhere. So we're on like a beach, kind of like kicking back. There's some palm trees and some
we're
logs that we're just lounging on.
After a long campaign of pirateering, buccaneering, we've docked up on an island and we've set up a camp on the beach. What do we
local driftwood?
Yeah, what do we local driftwood as opposed to imported driftwood? Isn't all driftwood imported? Isn't that the point of driftwood? What are we eating at this short rest? Should we go and hunt, or are we eating rations? Hardtack?
I
we've
think
spent too long on the ship. We're going to need something fresh.
I think it's that situation where we, took off our boots, rolled up our pants, and sort of waded into the water and,
and then
grab.
I was thinking. Grab some.
I was thinking more of like, we grabbed some crabs that we found in there.
You're going rock pooling. I'm standing there waiting for a fish to come by. I'm like, the trick is to wait until they get familiar with you being here. It's the long game, and you're like, I'm hungry now, Rob.
I've become one with the fishes.
I've become one with the fishes. Just splash. Nope, that one's it was preemptive, and now I need to start again because now they're no longer familiar with me being. I need to
my God!
One with them all over again. Meanwhile, you're like having some roast crab.
Yeah, I'm like kicking back already. I'm like. It's like, you have fun over there.
You've somehow found a cow, milked it, churned some butter, and put butter on your lobster that you've also grabbed.
Ooh, that sounds. I always keep. I've got like a little pocket dimension that just keeps some butter in at any given point in time.
It's a cantrip that just summons butter.
That's it. That's all it does.
Cool. What are
my favorite kind of cantrip.
What are we drinking? Have we got some stashed rum a la Pirates of the Caribbean?
Always. Yes. We got like the Kraken.
On every island, we've just stashed some rum. Cool.
That's the other thing in the pocket dimension. It's the cantrip that gives you butter and rum.
There's one in one hand, one in the other, and you don't want to mix them up. When you've had too much rum, you end up drinking butter.
Hey, you know what? If it's good enough butter, I'll just leave that there.
Cool. So we're drinking rum, eating some crab on a beach.
This sounds really nice. When are we doing this?
It does sound actually very nice. Let's make it happen. Let's start with the name. We've already touched on it a little bit, but Mendarii, what's that about? Where'd you get that? Where'd it come from?
What's that about? Who is she? I don't know her. So, like, where did the name come from? Is that
Yeah.
what you mean?
Yeah, like what does it mean? Where did it come from? What's the origins? All of that.
So, a very long time ago, I made a WoW character, and which I would just like to say, I have not played very much World of Warcraft. I'm not like a WoW player. I played then like a couple of times, and I've in modern day played like once or twice, and that's about it. Um, but I went through
for
and
WoW
I did
is like 12 times at least, right?
what?
Once or twice in WoW, isn't there like 12 times?
No,
at least?
like legit. So here's the thing: I'm not much of a multiplayer gamer.
Right.
Like, you know, WoW is kind of the thing where it's like I tried it by myself once or twice and it kind of wasn't really fun, and like I played with my brother and sister-in-law like literally twice, and that was like it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat though. I once I started getting into full nerd and became a dungeon master and everything, and I was like, well, I guess the cat's out of the bag. I'm a nerd now. Might as well try
dive into
World of
MMOs.
Warcraft. Because that's the thing, and so I tried it, downloaded it. I was convinced that I couldn't have downloaded the right thing because of how boring it was and how everybody rants about it. And I was grinding and I was like, it wasn't interesting. There was just all these thousands of people just with names, and I was like, these all, what is it? What am I doing here?
Yeah,
what's the point?
I never got like, I know that you're supposed to like join guilds and stuff like that. I never really understood how to do that. It always kind of weirded me out to be reaching out to random people on the internet, which is ironic. But but yeah, so I think, and also with WoW, it's really expensive. It is a monthly expense that for me is not at the current point in time worth the fiscal investment. Yeah. But anyway, so I did the random name generator thing on there, and I like found parts of names that I was like, I want this one, which is very similar actually to how I make names nowadays for things. I will like take different parts of things and be like, okay, I like the beginning of this, but I don't like I don't like this, and I want to add an extra vowel here and all this kind of stuff, whatever. And so eventually I came up with Mendarii, and that was my first character. And that became my screen name for like everything. And I loved how fantasy it was and all this kind of stuff. And then fast forward, I don't know, 4 or 5 years later, I'm making a D&D character, and that's the first name that I was like, I'll use that one. That's a fantasy name. So
it's a good name though, because it's English enough that you can be like, I know how to pronounce that, but it's got the double I at the end, which immediately says this isn't an English word. So
yes,
you're
this
like,
is
okay,
a fantasy
but
word.
It's foreign, and so there you go.
Yeah, exactly. One. That is the idea behind that. Originally, I think I had like the ARI or the DARI or something like that, and I was like, no, that needs 2 I's, please, thank you. And I had to.
Otherwise, it looks French, maybe Mendarii.
It just like I think it puts the emphasis on a different part of the word if you don't have the 2 I's.
Because it could have been Mendarii.
Yeah. Or So.
Yeah, very cool. So it was just you hobbled it together. It's not like you were like, oh, my grandmother told me it when I was a child.
No, nothing so glorious. It was my gamer tag.
So
my gamer tag used to be my like name / like nickname, and then I was like, what if I had one that wasn't?
It is pretty funny that you're you are literally called Faye, and you're like, what's a fantasy name I can have on? What's a name that's typical to high fantasy stories of like fairies and pixies and elves and satyrs and things? What's a name that would fit in with that?
So, listen. 2 different things. One, I will say, when I was younger, I knew that it meant fairy, but I didn't really know a lot of like the lore behind the Fae in general. Growing up. And I actually didn't like it. I hated my name.
Oh, really?
I thought it was too like frou-frou-y for me.
Frou-frou.
Yeah, it felt very very like, I don't know, like dainty girly whatever, and I just like really didn't like it. It just like didn't feel like an it felt like I'm gonna go skip through a field wearing pastels kind of a thing. Right. is what it felt like. and so I never really liked that. But actually, as I got into D&D and like, and I have always loved fairies and magical, like whimsical worlds and all that kind of stuff. So getting into D&D and sort of learning about like fey creatures and and then learning obviously about like Gaelic lore and stuff like that, all of that kind of stuff. I was like, oh, you know what? I'm cool with it. I like it. I think that's a cool name.
Came around to it. That's good.
Yeah, I will also say the other thing about being Faye on the internet is that I have never ever encountered in my life before having the same name as someone else. Like, in school, there was always like,
relatively
3 Thomases
uncommon.
or whatever.
17 Michaels.
Yeah, exactly.
No Faye.
But no face. And I was like, great, this is awesome. And now on the internet, I swear to God, I go into a chat, there's always at least one person with the name Faye in there. And I'm like,
not okay with that. I've always loved Robert partly for that reason as well. It's that it's a common name, common enough that I don't have to spell it to people. People don't understand. People generally
people can never
understand.
spell my name right ever.
Faye, F-A? I don't know.
F-A, F-E, F-E-I, F-E-Y, F-A-E, F-E-A. Dude, literally everything but how to spell it.
So Robert's common enough that people have heard of it, but it's uncommon enough that I don't bump into a lot of other Roberts. I see most people called like Rob or like Robbie. Yeah, a lot of Robs and Robbies and Bobs. But a lot of people. Do you prefer
Robert? Because I definitely call you Rob most of the time.
I go by whatever. I go by Robert. For like official things, I'll sign off. It's always the question when I'm writing something. If I've signed off with an R, a Rob or a Robert, those all mean very different things for what the tone of the email was.
What does it mean when you've just written R? Because I could see that either being like your like lover tryst thing, or this is like your like mafia threatening note.
It's I don't want to give away my code, but yeah, you'll see if you feel like I'm pissed off at you, and then you see one particular way that I've signed off a message. Sometimes I don't even sign off at all. Shit! And then you'll be like, why would he's coming for me now. Why would we sign off in Discord? It would be if I started signing off. If I sent a message just being like, are we still okay for that collaboration next Sunday, Robert? You'd be like, is he gonna die? Is he putting his affairs in order?
Blink twice if you're safe.
Wait, we're on Discord and I can't see. Crap. I need to catch up with all of the thanks for the hype train because it's going crazy. I haven't been able to get a word in edgeways because Mendarii didn't shut the fuck up. Jesus.
Oh my God. It's almost like you've met another you, huh?
I know, right? Miss Bowman, thank you for resubscribing for tier 3 for 21 months now. Goddamn, Miss Bowman's amazing. Thank you. Detect, thank you very much for following. Miss Bowman, thank you for 5 gifted subs. Rose, thank you for 18 months. And L Brown as well, thank you for sub gift. All right. Caught up with the hype train. Thank you very much, everybody. You know the drill. If it's a short rest, I tend to ignore you some more. I am reading the chat, but I can't always comment on the things that you're messaging. So if you do have questions for me or Faye throughout today, you can redeem the 50-point D&D question channel redemption, which means that I can actually see the questions when it comes up. I can catch them and make sure to ask them later. So that was the first very throwaway question of what's the deal with your name. And everybody has been able to tell from that how this is going to go, because we're 25 minutes into it, and we've answered, where did you get your name? so there might have to be a Mendarii part 2.
If you need fucking time
this is going to turn into a long rest. It's the first long rest that Robert's ever done on his channel. If I had the time today as well, geez, I've only allocated 2 hours because I've just moved into my new house, everybody, and we've finally got the place unpacked and decorated enough to warrant having people over. So we're going to be having a housewarming later today. So I need to be done by a particular time. Also, it's getting very late for Mendarii at some point as well. So so we'll
it's actually like middle of the afternoon.
Oh, is it?
So I'm
so good.
Yeah, it's 4:30.
24-hour Rob Diary stream, yeah. We'll see how we go, DM Dave. Might end up with Lizzie coming in and being like, "Hey Rob, Guests are literally here.
Yeah, just bring him on stream. I'll talk to him. It's fine.
Exactly.
I'll be like, how you doing?
I'll go
Nice to meet you.
I'll go start preparing for the party. Lizzie can come on stream for the first time ever.
It's fine. It's my stream now. Hello, welcome to Mendarii host short rest.
I'd be down with it. It'd be weird. It'd be the first time that somebody has hosted my stream without me being on it. But I think you'd be a good one for it. You're very
that's so
charismatic
sweet.
person. All right. So tell us about how you got into D&D. What was your D&D incoming, your on ramp?
So I feel like mine is really sad. Because everyone always has like, oh, like my brother like DM'd for me and my friends, or like my parents really loved tabletop gaming, or I had a friend who wanted to try DMing or whatever.
Yeah.
It's always something like that. And I do have a brother who is very into tabletop, plays, actually has like written his own, or not. He's been a part of the like creative process of making a TTRPG, all of that good stuff. So you'd think that it would have been him. It was not. I
just found a business card lying on the street that said you should play D&D.
Well, so I used to watch, and I still do to an extent. I used to watch this group of YouTubers play Minecraft, and I watched
Hermitcraft server?
Pardon?
Hermitcraft server?
No, I'm not. I've never.
Mumbo Jumbo.
Again, I'm not great at the multiplayer gaming thing.
You say a group of people playing Minecraft, and I assumed the most famous ones on YouTube.
No,
everyone
certainly not. No. It was the Yogscast. That was. So, which they don't really play Minecraft anymore on their streams, really. Some of them do, but anyway, so you got like the big conglomerate of the Yogscast, whatever. You got the main one, then there's a bunch of other channels, whatever. And so whenever I would finish watching channels on one, if I was still bored, I would go around and go look at all the other ones.
Yeah.
And so one of them in particular had a like 15-minute highlight of their D&D stream that they had just started, and I watched it and I was like, oh my god, this is so fun, blah blah blah. I was like, are there any more highlights? And there weren't, so I went and started watching the VODs, and basically that got me into it. That campaign did, and I bought the books, like some of them like used off of like Amazon and stuff like that. And I would sit, and whenever there would be like a rule that would come up that everyone would fight about, like grapple rules or whatever, I would like sit down in my book, I'd pause it and be like, okay, hold on, and that's how that works. Okay, cool.
I think we're the same person.
Rob, I've said that so many times.
I know, it's uncanny. I was last night at like 1 a.m. when I finally had time to like do some prep for this chat and watch some of your stuff. I was watching your stuff on YouTube, which I do have questions about, and I'll be getting back to that at some point.
Oh shit! Okay.
I was like, she's got such the same take on all of the things. even your opinion of paladins, which we can get into. I was only pushing back on as devil's advocate. In reality, I have the same view of paladins, that they have to be lawful.
Oh shit!
Or they're not paladins. So yeah, I did the exact same thing, and it's how I got into D&D as well. I sat down and watched Critical Role, and every time that they cast a spell or they said anything mechanical terms, I was like, what's that spell? Pause, pick up my PHB, scroll,
especially
flick.
And then eventually it became like I don't think that's how that works, and I would go and find it.
Yeah. I was one of those very annoying shitheads in the comments, being like, Keyleth, that's not how Windwalk works, or whatever. Been like, they got this wrong because actually it requires a verbal component.
See, thankfully I don't comment things on the internet very frequently. So I don't have any record of that. I would just be silently judging them by myself. But yeah, so which is really funny too, because the Yogscast actually years before, they had these things called Yogs Quest, where they played some game that I had no idea what it was. It was D&D and or other tabletop RPGs. That I know that now.
Yeah.
But I had no idea, and they were playing, and I was like, this game's incredible. What are they've got like minis and like, how is this really how this game's designed? This can't all be written down, like all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I want to play this game, and I had wanted to do that for so long. It took me years to figure out that they're playing D&D. That's what was happening.
It's similar because I kind of like a vague recollection of what D&D was just through how it seeps in through the zeitgeist. But I watched Will Wheaton's tabletop series, and he played Dragon Age with a bunch of people, and Dragon Age is another TTRPG, and they were just improvising stuff, making things up, and I was like, this looks really fun. And then I was like, there's a really small part of me with that went, I think that's what kind of like D&D is, something like this. So I got in touch with one guy who'd I'd learned recently that they were a dungeon master. So I got in touch with them and were like, "Hey, would you run me a game to see what it's like?"
Aw, that's so cool.
And then I woke up 5 years later talking to you with with the D&D heroin needle still in my arm. Like,
you're like, oh shit, how did this get here?
How did this get here?
Yeah, it definitely I don't know, it sneaks up on you. I remember too, so when I first started getting into it, I didn't realize that there were so many other editions. And so like I kept like trying to find, and this was like, I started playing about a year, I think, but maybe a year and a half into the release of 5th edition, so there wasn't very much stuff on the internet yet.
Yeah, like
and like I started playing before Xanathar's came out.
Yeah, same. I started playing 5th edition when there was literally just the first 3 books.
Yeah, and so I remember being like, I was trying to find character sheets. I would go into like used bookstores to see if I could like find D&D books there, and I could find 4th edition ones, and I was like, I don't understand. And it took forever for me to understand that like I was looking at character sheets of like 4E or 3.5, and I was like, why don't these look the same?
What is this bit? What is this talking about?
Yeah, I remember too going down into my
like early enough to be like Thaco. You didn't find any, and just got
nothing that early.
Like, what the hell is this?
I didn't really understand why I couldn't find 5th edition books. I know now that it's like it had just come out, so of course they would be at used bookstores. But I didn't know that. I thought D&D had been around for like ever, And I remember going into my basement, and we had like bookshelves down there. And I was looking to see if my brother had any old books, and I found an old 3.5 Dungeon Master's Guide.
Oh, yeah.
And I tore the map out of the back and had it like laminated. So I have like a grid. No.
Oh, jeez. Tearing up his
Why
books.
He doesn't use it? I'm pretty sure I still have that book. He doesn't give a shit. He had been moved out for years, so this is something he left behind. It's not like this was like his that I took from him.
He doesn't need this stuffed toy from his childhood because he's clearly not got it on him. I'll just go through his memories box and take out the award that he got for first place in an art competition when he was 6. He doesn't need that anymore. I'll turn that over and draw on the back. He doesn't need it because he's not used it in a while. Yeah, that's what memory boxes are for.
No. Here's the thing. I don't think he gives a shit. I could ask him about it. I'd be like, hey, you want your book back? But I have it because I got a gridded map, and then on the other side it's got like, that's just like a white map.
Yeah.
And then on the other side it's got like a dungeon or something. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I still use it. It's literally sitting over there.
Well, as long as you're getting the use out of it, I suppose it's okay.
I'm sure he won't hold it against me.
I've only torn out one map that comes designed to be torn out, the ones with the perforations and everything. I've only ever
it's designed to be torn out.
Yeah, I've only actually used one of those, and that's when I got 2 of the same book given to me by Wizards of the Coast, and I was like, well, I guess I can tear the map out of one of them then now.
Oh my god!
It's just like a defacing thing that I can't bring myself to do.
It does feel really weird, and I probably wouldn't do it with my own book. But
the truth comes out. It doesn't matter that it's torn out. It's designed to be torn out. So what's the problem with it being torn out? Would you do it with your own? No, obviously not.
Whatever. They don't put cool stuff in the back of fucking D&D books anymore. They don't even put indexes in them. So
no, they certainly don't. Jesus. They're like, you can Control F on D&D Beyond. It's fine.
Don't even. Oh,
D&D Beyond's search engine's actually getting a lot better recently, I've noticed.
It has gotten a lot better. It's normally very bad. It's still
so
a little
bad.
jank. Because like if you type even a single letter wrong, let's say you go to type in tiefling and you type TEI instead of TIE, you'll never find it. It'll be
no
like
idea. I don't know what that is. No idea.
Yeah, and you're like, what?
There's a Bob Worldbuilder video about that. You know Bob Worldbuilder on YouTube? He's a D&D YouTuber and he does some real good content, kind of wholesome fella. He does a very short video where he's searching for firebolt, but he puts it as one word. And the search engine's like, nope, no idea. Don't know what that is.
Couldn't find it.
Do you mean fireball? Do you mean?
I'm not sure that's ever existed.
Yeah, and then he's like, oh wait, and then he goes back, space, and then it's like, oh, firebolt, here it is, and then all of the instances where firebolt appears in all of the different books. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So you've only ever played 5th edition, haven't since gone back and played any earlier editions?
I've been tempted to try 4th edition actually, just because everyone hates it so much. I'm like, I gotta know. And but no, I'm not really interested at all in 3.5. Pathfinder, I'm sort of intrigued by 2nd edition, but no, those are, I've never really had the desire to go back and play older editions of D&D. Oh, I did watch a 2E game once that I thought was really interesting. That was like a lot like lighter, and so I thought I maybe would be interested in trying that out. But I've never actually like sat down and tried it, and I don't want to learn the rules for it. So
that's fair enough. Yeah, I've said to.
I'd rather learn other TTRPGs that aren't D&D than go back in older editions when I think that 5e is the one that I like the best.
But how do you know if you haven't played the earlier editions?
If I haven't played them, that's fair. And to an extent, if you've got a good DM, any game can be a fun time. But I know enough about how 3.5 sort of works.
Yeah,
and how it's written and stuff like that.
The reputation of it, and
it's too crunchy. I like a good amount of rules, but I don't like that many rules. You know, like 5e hits that perfect middle ground for me of like, you can't throw me in a sandbox. I don't know what to do with myself. I like if you do like fate, I'm like, I don't even know where to begin. What can I do? I need a box to think outside of, and there's no box here. And then, you know, on the other end of the spectrum, you've got something like 3.5, that's like super crunchy and has got like specializations for all these different things and all these different numbers that you add. And it's like, okay, well, here's your flat-footed AC versus your normal AC versus your, you know, like whatever and all that kind of stuff. That's too much for me. I would
love to try that, because in theory, I think I would like it, but I think in practice, it might be like, oh wow, this is just too much now. It's getting in the way. It's getting in the way of doing things in the session.
There's a lot of things that theoretically sound really cool, but then in practice end up being sort of clunky.
Yeah. I would like to see them do an advanced Dungeons and Dragons for each of the editions, to be fair. Like, I think that there's enough people calling for new, like, crunchy rules for 5th edition that they could easily get away with doing just 2 editions for each one. Like, here's 5th edition, here's advanced 5th edition.
I kind of think that defeats the point, though. Like, this was actually a conversation that I had with Dag last week on my stream about Pathfinder versus Pathfinder 2e. And 2nd edition Pathfinder, I think, from what I've heard, I don't know a ton about it, but from what I've heard, it kind of is a lot, like, you know, sort of like rules lighter. I think supposed to be kind of more pared down in the way that 5e is more pared down to make it more ingestible. But like what most people said about it, and what Dag said about it, and all that kind of stuff was that it was kind of something that nobody asked for, and like the reason that Pathfinder had,
because when you have 5th edition D&D and Pathfinder, like, there's a reason people are playing Pathfinder. They're not playing it to be
there's a reason that people because that's basically the branch. Because you ignore 4th edition, because you know no one likes 4th edition. The branch basically goes, from 3.5, I either want to continue doing something that's similar to 3.5, or I want something lighter. And if you want something lighter, you play 5e. And if you want something more like 3.5, you play Pathfinder.
But with them being different companies and D&D being the much bigger powerhouse,
we all know
I
that
think
Pathfinder is D&D. Come on.
Yeah, I know, but they're different. They're made, but I'm talking about it from a business perspective. You can see Paizo would go, hey, people are loving 5th edition because it's so easy to pick up. There are a lot of people who have talked about, I'd like to try Pathfinder, but it's a bit too crunchy, so we'll make 2nd edition less crunchy so that they can get into Pathfinder.
It totally stands to reason that would be a thing that they would do. However, I think that it has not been the success that they wanted it to be.
I'm saying it's the same with in reverse of D&D would have a market for people being like, hey, I want more crunchy rules, but I don't want to play 3.5, and so they bring out 5e Advanced Edition, and I think that there's enough market for it because of and they've talked about this on the Dungeon Cast podcast as well, where they say like they've been playing for long enough to know to sort of see cycles of things. There's a call if things get simplified, there's enough people start to play the simplified one that they want it crunchier,
the more complex,
and then they bring out a more crunchy version. And then it's too complicated, and so they want to simplify it. And so I think there's this cycle that's always like
it's an eternal cycle of the grass is always greener.
If they just always brought out like, here's the new edition, here's the simplified version of this edition, here's the advanced rules for this edition that give you maybe crunchy things. I think it might work. It would prevent a lot of people having to homebrew their own rules for like falling damage and things, because this falling damage isn't crunchy enough and all that sort of thing.
Right.
I just want to catch up with the chat real quick to say hello to How Not to DM, who's in the chat here. I don't know if you've met How Not to DM before, but Derek runs a fantastic podcast called How Not to DM. Derek, you should reach out to Mendarii as well. The episode would be even longer than our episode was, because by God does she talk. So
listen, man, my literal job is to sit on stream for 4 hours and talk about absolutely nothing. So I don't know. Yep. I don't know what you expected.
Yep. And thank you to Amber Cloudy for resubscribing for 7 months. Thank you for Bodegazilla. Thank you for the 130. Bodegazilla. There you go. Bodegazilla. So that's how you got into D&D. The editions you've played.
Second question, done. What's your third one?
Oh boy. Okay, let's warm up. Here we go. Third question. What do we want to talk about next? Your YouTube. You have a YouTube. I went to watch the stuff on there. There's like 7 videos there. What happened? Why did you not? The last video was like a year ago or something.
Yeah, so I would love to continue making YouTube videos. That is something that like it's not like I've just walked away and I don't want to do it anymore. The reality of the situation is, at the time, I had absolutely no time to do YouTube because I would only release shows or like videos once every other week, and so I would have time to be able to be like, okay, I'm gonna record a bunch of them, I'm gonna edit a bunch, so I now have content for the next few weeks. And I never ended up doing that because I never had the time, and always did like last minute. It was super stressful and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I need time. I will come back to this at some point. Yeah. And you know, whatever, and be able to do this. I have stuff written out and ideas written out for future episodes. I just haven't done it. I hate recording myself. I hate it a lot. And even worse, I hate editing myself because I always get pissed off that I'm like, damn it, why didn't I say this thing in this way? Like, I want this take, and it's... Yeah. So, eventually I do want to get back into it. It's just a matter of trying to find a balance of my time, which I'm not very good at.
Well, a good series. I liked it. It was a nice, short, easy to digest series. The name I'm confused about though, because I was like, oh, maybe she picked actually after, like, before the very famous College Humor.
So yeah, I had never heard of that before. Not even a little. So I'm like, not even a little had I heard of it, and then I was like,
actually. And then I looked at the date it was released. I was like, no, that's definitely long after the College Humor thing took off in a huge way.
I don't know if you know this about me. People will say things about like things that exist in the TTRPG space or like the nerd space or whatever, and my eyes will glaze over. I'll be like, "What are you talking about?"
What is it?
I've got no idea. I'm very out of the loop. I am very not hip with the kids.
You don't know Wizards of the Coast? Yeah, no.
You know, you make that joke, but when people would say like WOTC, I was like, "What does that mean?" I'd be like, "Who are you talking about?"
What's WotC?
Yeah, no, I had no idea. Yeah, it took me a long time. So definitely something that, because again, I am someone who brought myself into this space. No one has been there to show me the ropes. No one's been there to sort of be like, hey, this is this thing and whatever. The only reason I even know about Critical Role is because the show that I watched, High Rollers, that was the one that got me into it. The DM of that, Mark Colville, or not Mark Colville, what am I saying? Mark Holmes.
Holmes, yeah.
Matt Colville. Mark Holmes. Matt Mercer. I think it's Holmes because it's Sherlock Holmes.
No, it's Sherlock Holmes.
Is his like tag. Is it Humes?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I always thought it was the other, but whatever. Anyway, so the DM of that
I will look it up to prove you wrong if you want.
Yeah, please do. I hate getting people's names wrong, so that is something that I will gladly
Matt
the way I remember is because his last name is like his tag is Sherlock
Holmes, yeah.
You know.
It's Matt Humes.
Yeah. Well, all right. Anyway,
but
regardless,
I think they use they them pronouns these days. I think as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've seen them on Twitch a couple times, and they I don't know if they're gender fluid but they've talked about.
I saw the lit streams and Yes, I knew that. I didn't know how that had changed. The last time I heard about it, they very much were like, "No, I'm Mark here," and then I can't remember the other name, but
yeah,
right. Okay. And so I hadn't seen anything past that, but so not to
No, of course.
to incorrectly say anything, but anyway, the DM of that show, friends with Matt Mercer, and they would all talk about, like, the whole group would talk about Critical Role all the time, and I was like, okay. And then I remember seeing an episode where they're like, they just celebrated their 50th episode or whatever of Critical Role, and I was like, fuck it, okay, all right.
I guess I'll
watch this show and see what this is all about, and here we are.
Did you end up getting into Critical Role then?
I did, yeah. I was a really, really big Crit Role fan for a couple of years. I still really like it. I don't like Campaign 3.
Not a fan of it. I've not caught up with Campaign 3. I'm like 5 episodes behind or something, and that's my main qualm with Critical Role. I really love it. Really love all of their performances and the stories that they tell and stuff. But I don't love the fact that it's 4 hours of content that I have to watch every week if I want to keep up. And it helps that in Campaign 3 they're only doing 3 weeks out of every month, but still that's still just so many episodes. You get 2 weeks behind, and suddenly it's a chore to catch up again.
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely something that that I have had issues with in the past of being like really far behind. But like I think I got to episode 4 of Campaign 3, and the very scripted thing happened, which I don't mind you scripting something to happen. That's fine. But it was very, very scripted and heavy-handed, and I thought it was handled really poorly. And on top of that, I don't like most of the characters.
Fair enough.
That being said, I really loved Robbie, and was sad that, like, I knew that Robbie was going to be temporary. I don't know. All of their characters to me feel like temporary characters. Like, these aren't people who are going to have big, long arcs. This is something that you'd play in a one-shot or maybe in a very short series and then kind of let them go. That's how not all of them, but basically all of them felt to me. And that made it really hard to get invested into it. And
what would make them not that way? If they're less gimmicky or what? Like,
well, yeah. So the thing is that like. Okay, so for example, like Laudna is a character that you'd think that like that would tick all of the boxes for me. I love spooky shit. Aesthetically, she's really cool.
Yeah.
She's got really cool abilities, all this kind of stuff. Like on paper, Laudna sounds incredible. But I'm like, okay, but what kind of an arc is this person? Can this person possibly have?
Right.
This person who seems to have lived a full life, to not really, at least at that point when I was watching, not really have any goals other than to help like their friend.
Yeah.
And like it just seemed like very like this is a fun character, but is very stagnant, and a lot of them
play it that way. Surely she's got a whole rich backstory that she could uncover of like how she died and revenge of that, or maybe she changes her feelings towards the people who killed her and the whole Briarwood tie-in and things.
Yeah, and maybe you're totally right. The other thing is that like there were a lot of like seemingly very big backstory details that were dropped really early on, and like again like it kind of seemed like not everyone, but most everyone came into this campaign going, I'm gonna play the quirky character.
Right.
And that's just, for me, it's not my cup of tea. I'm more power to you if you really enjoy it. I'm not out here trying to be like, I hate Critical Role and I hate everything they're doing and blah 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 blah. But yeah, I've kind of fallen out of love with Critical Role over the past year, which has been really sad for me.
Yeah. Is there an element of it getting like too big? Do you reckon that's a part of it at all? Like they've lost.
I don't really care about that. I know a lot of people clipped out of context. Good, thank you. I think that
thanks, Mr. Fluffy Bunny, by the way, for the 10 gifted subs. Appreciate it.
I think that that I don't really care that they have really high production value. Like, I've never been someone who was under the illusion of like, these are all just friends playing a game of D&D. They stopped doing that the second they started streaming. And if you've ever streamed a D&D show,
I wouldn't say the second they started streaming, because by God, those first episodes of Campaign 1 are difficult to watch because of the amount.
They are difficult to watch, but it was still a show.
Eating food at the table and everything. They were definitely had the feeling of we're just friends and we've introduced the camera. And then once they stopped ordering food for the table, I think that's when it was like, okay, now they're taking it seriously. This is a production.
Sure. But I think that like people like that whole once it started taking off more than everyone I guess expected, it became like, oh, this is something that we should really invest into a show and blah blah blah. But like if you think that the entire preamble to that situation of them even having that show on Geek and Sundry to begin with wasn't like this is something that we think could be a really big show that we're producing and all this stuff like that, you're wrong. Like that's there was a bit of like a perfect storm with all of the different elements going into Critical Role when it launched. It wasn't just like, oh, we set up a camera at the end of our table and started playing our games, and then it magically became this sensation in the space, Yeah.
They had the necessary building blocks in the first place in order for it to take off, and Geek and Sundry obviously recognized that and said, hey, this could be big. Right.
And so I guess to come back to that, I think that production value, I have a bare minimum of production value that I expect from something that I will watch. If you've got bad audio, I will not watch your show. And bad video is a very close second. But like, so like I definitely, when I'm looking for content, I go, these are the things that I want to, at the bare minimum, have, be able to hear this really well, and it looks nice and whatever. I want it to be aesthetically pleasing. And then anything that they do past that is cool. I'm like, it's cool that they have a set. It's cool that the lights change, all of that good stuff. But that's all kind of just like literally set dressing. I care about the show and the characters. I love the set,
but it's just set dressing at the end of the day.
I mean, that's literally what it is. And so like if you don't, to me, if I'm not grasped by who the characters are, it doesn't matter how nice your show looks or how shitty it looks, whatever. I'm not gonna be invested in that.
Yeah. Another problem I find with sort of keeping up with the story is that because it's 4 hours and I have to be doing other things while I'm watching it, I can't allocate 4 hours to just sitting down and watching it. So I have to watch it on double speed, and I have to have it on while I'm doing other things, like I'm going for a walk.
Double speed's rough, man. You miss so much of the actual beats of comedy and what like.
If you listen to everything, if you consume everything at double speed, I listen to I watch all my Netflix on 1.5. I listen to all my podcasts at 2.2 speed, and I'm used to it. I feel like I don't miss the beats of comedy because everything is at that speed, and so all of the dialogue is clipped, and so the beats are also clipped by the same proportionate amount. So you're still getting the same beat.
I understand what you're saying. I think that to do that really messes with the cinematography of a given whatever media you're consuming, but that's neither here nor there. You do you, I guess.
I feel like if you can process quicker by training yourself to watch and consume things faster, you can process the cinematography in the same way.
It's not about the process necessarily, like or being able to process information that quickly. To me, it's about the integrity of the artistic piece. And when you mess with that, you mess with the integrity of it as.
But you have no idea. You have no idea how quickly my brain processes things. I could genuinely experience time differently than you, and so
that's very true.
And so could the neighbor, and so could the neighbor. So the artist saying, I want my media to be consumed in this way, I might not be consuming the media in that way. I might be
sure.
When I speed it up, I might be consuming it in the same way that you perceive it.
Sure, but like, I mean, that can be said about anything. You looking at a piece of art hanging on a wall, and me looking at a piece of art hanging on a wall are going to mean two completely different things to the both of us, But like that to me is like saying I'm only going to look at this piece of art in very dim lighting, which you can totally do, and like if that's how you want to go through the world, more fucking power to you. I'm not here to tell you what you're doing is wrong. I just think that like that's not necessarily how something was designed to be consumed. Like, oh my gosh, okay, this is actually really interesting. So there are these cave paintings, right, that exist in the world.
Yeah,
and there was this article
meant to be used for with fire because it makes them move.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because you'd have like deer with like 3 heads or whatever, and you'd be like, "What the fuck is that?" But like in the light of like a fire, it moves and has this motion, and that's how it's intended to be viewed. And what you're telling me is that you're viewing it with a flashlight.
Yeah, but flashlight flicking it on and off to mimic this the motion of a fire just sped up double time. It would still move in the same fashion. If I recorded the illumination from a fire and then played it back in double speed, I would be viewing the artwork in the same way that it was meant to be viewed, just faster. If I view it with a strobe light, I can view the artwork and move on and get something else done with my day. I can fit more into my day if I speed shit up.
Oh my god. Okay.
But no, for my original point, because I watch things at double speed and I'm listening while I'm doing things, the one concession I will make is that any distraction you miss twice as much. Because if your mind gets distracted for like 30 seconds while somebody's talking to you or somebody walks into the room or something, and instead of thinking about the story, you're thinking about what's in the fridge as you're getting shit out to make a sandwich or whatever. If you're distracted for 30 seconds, you've missed a minute worth of content. So that is the one problem with it. And so I really like Matthew Perkins has got a channel, and part of the things he does every week is put out like a Critical Role episode recap. And so I'll listen to the Critical Role episode, and when it ends, I'll go over to the YouTube and watch Matt's recap for it to see if there was any points during that 4-hour episode that I missed.
Any big beats that
like,
you missed?
Should I have picked up on anything that I missed here?
Yeah, I definitely like. I watched Critical Role while I would do other things, and there were definitely things, especially in the first campaign, because I used to watch it and fall asleep a lot, because I would watch it when I go to bed, and then like start part of it back over that I didn't remember, and like whatever the next day, and there are some like really big things that would happen sometimes that I would just totally miss, and people would like make jokes about them, and I'd be like, what are you talking about for so long? Oh, goodness. Anyway, enough about Critical Role.
Enough about Critical Role. Let's talk about proficiency bonus.
Oh, good.
Tell us about proficiency bonus. How did that begin and why did it stop?
How did it begin? I had a friend, my friend Jonathan, reached out to me and was like, hey, he called me at like 11 o'clock at night when I was out of town. He was like, "Do you have time?" And I was like, "Sure, what's up?" And we hopped on a like Zoom call or Discord call or whatever. And he was like, "Hey, what would you think about doing?" He asked me like some lead up question. Then he goes, "Okay, would you want to do a podcast?" And I was like, "Sure, fuck it, why not? You know, let's do it." So
you look across
bonus,
to the checklist of things everyone must do. Have a podcast.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I ain't got that one yet. Let's do it.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. So it was a sort of like D&D comedy advice show type of a thing where people could like submit questions or and we would play different like games that we had sort of come up with, and it was just like some random little thing. It was really, really fun, and we would have guests on sometimes and all of that good stuff. But ultimately it ended up stopping because neither one of us had time for it, and it wasn't something that like had thousands of listeners, and we were like, look, the cost benefit analysis of this thing is that it takes too much time and does not give us enough out. 40 something.
Oh wow. Decent. Every week?
Yeah, we basically mostly every week. We basically had decided that that we would give it a year or until we got bored.
Yeah.
And I think a couple months before we hit the year mark, we were like, nah.
With the exception of the watching things on double speed debate, yet again we are the same person, because I also had a podcast with some friends that we decided we would give a year or until we got bored, and we got to the year mark and went, that's it, we're done.
Yep. Yeah. It's sort of one of those things where I think that people are. I like working with people who are very pragmatic, and very like, look, like, yes, we have a way that we feel about this thing. We both really love this thing, or we all love this thing, or whatever. But I want to talk about the from a very logistical, logical standpoint. What is the benefit of this thing in our lives, and is it worth our time? And if it's not, it doesn't mean that it was bad or that it was a waste of time. It just means that it's no longer something that I want to dedicate my time to. It's not really like an emotional
Sorry, Fido, you heard the girl. Off to the pound you go.
Where's my loaf? Loaf.
Loaf is actually on here as the next thing I wanted to talk about. Tell me about Loaf. I wanna know more about Loaf.
She's very cute.
Corgi, I assume. Corgi mix.
Yes.
Corgi. No, Corgi.
Full bred Corgi. She's 100% bred. 100% loaf.
Is that the name?
Yeah, thank you.
Is that the reason for the name?
Yeah, she looks like a loaf of bread.
She looks like a loaf of bread.
She's got little toasted buns. And that is my loafy bean. That is why
How long
she
you had
is. I've had her for just over 2 years.
Ooh, nice.
And is
she still a puppy
2
then?
years old now.
Yeah.
Yeah. She turned 2 in January. So
when does puppy stage sort of end for Corgi? Obviously, it's not like
I think about 2 years old is the good sort of standard-ish normally of like they're kind of puppies for about 2 years, and then they sort of start moving out of that. And I've noticed her starting to lose some of her more puppy-like tendencies and kind of grow into a more mature Corgis.
Think about taxes and mortgages and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I found her the other day bent over a bench at 3 a.m. with glasses on the end of her snoot.
Just putting away childish toys. She just sighed as she put away Tonka truck.
Yeah. So I have pictures of Loaf on my Instagram. She also has an Instagram that I never post on because I'm terrible at keeping up my own social media. But I think her Instagram is Loaf the Corgi. Loaf the Corgi, I think is. Yeah, that's her. Here's the link for that if you want to go look at puppy pictures of her, because that was when I was really on top of.
We've just lost all of our viewers. I just watched the viewer count. It went down to 0. Nobody's here. Nobody's watching anymore.
Yeah,
because they're all open.
It's fine. I'll bring the. Do I I think she might be in the other room. I do have a loaf camera.
If you have a loaf cam, that'll bring all the viewers back.
Well, it'll bring it all back. Circle it back in. But yeah,
so is she the family dog? Is she your dog?
She's my dog. I've never had a dog before. Right before COVID, I was like, I'm at a good place where I feel like responsible enough to take care of a dog. I will have the time. There's always going to be someone home with her because she'll be a puppy, and like making sure that she can get taken out and is probably taken care of, all that kind of stuff. I was like ready to take her to this thing called puppy playtime at PetSmart, which is a thing that would happen every Saturday. Once they're like 2 months old, like between 2 and 6 months, you can go and you can get them socialized there with other pups and stuff like that. All of that stuff. I was so ready. 2 weeks later, COVID hits, and we're in lockdown. And I was like, cool.
The world. What a weird world we live in at the moment.
What a weird time we are living in.
This is going to be very well recorded time of history. We are living in the future's history books because of all of the stuff that's happening.
Well, and also, like, social media makes it so easy to document, like, all of the different perspectives of, people. You can have an entire history class that's, like, watching fucking TikToks of people who were in certain areas of the world.
So today we'll be learning about the floss. The floss was a particular type of dance that was famous for, and there'll be, like...
Oh, my God.
So can anybody tell me
what the fuck is the floss?
Can anybody tell me what the floss was? Can anybody demonstrate it? Yes, Marcus stands up, and it was something like this, wasn't it? Not quite, Marcus. So you see, get out some diagrams and flip charts, holographic chalkboard.
There's like a little video tutorial of how to do it.
So why were they doing this?
Oh my goodness.
No one knows.
No one knows. I don't know.
So she's cutie. If she toddles by, make sure to grab her for the camera. I'm sure people would love to see her.
I don't know where she was in here. I think she went into the other room, but because she's a strong, independent being who don't need no owner.
I don't need no man. I don't need nobody.
But she's a good Beanums, and I love her a lot, and she's gotten really good about listening, and and like again, something has just sort of like clicked, and I think this is because she's gotten a bit older. I mean, obviously she's not an old dog, but she's gotten a little bit older. I think she's getting more into that stage in her puppy life where she's like, oh, okay, I trust that the things that you're telling me are for my benefit, so I will listen to you.
Give me the lowdown as a corgi owner. Give me the lowdown on the pros and cons of corgis. Where Lizzie and I are looking to adopt soon, and one of the ones that came up at the pound was a tricolor corgi, and we were like, damn, she's cute.
So corgis are really incredible dogs. They are probably my favorite dog breed in general because they're cute forever. Like they're cute when they're puppies and they're cute when they're adults, which is like my big thing. Like people who say there aren't ugly dogs in the world are liars. There are a lot of dogs who are really cute as puppies, but then when they grow up they're not as cute. So I will say very photogenic, very have a lot of attitude. There's a very specific look that corgis give you. Like there's a group on Facebook called Disapproving Corgis, and like that's that is accurate. I will say, let's see. She's very snuggly. The one thing that I've noticed about at least the corgis that I've met in real life that were all, sort of like, I don't know, like mostly female corgis. She excited pees, and she still does it. So if she hasn't seen you in a while, or she's meeting you for the first time and you pet her, she will pee. So that's something that is adorable. I feel every time like I come home, I feel like a soldier returning from war. Because she squeaks and she wiggles, and and she's so excited to see you. But then I have to clean up her messes. She becomes like a gremlin when she gets wet. So she gets the zoomies real bad and will run all over. And because they're so low to the ground, if it's like wet or snowy outside, their entire stomachs are just soaking wet.
Yeah.
But like I really like their temperament. They're normally actually pretty quiet dogs. They're herders, so that's what they're bred for. Is they're bred to herd
Excuse me,
people.
what? What are they herding?
They're herding
With
dogs.
legs like that?
They are, yeah, they're cattle herders. Yeah, because
They're not
I
herding
believe
any cattle. What?
they are, dude. Let me just tell you
They're like this big.
that that Loaf, like, that she will I have this joke with her that whenever anyone gets up and goes out of the room, I'll say Loaf would feel more comfortable if she goes with you, because if someone like goes away from the group, or if you're walking with a group of people and someone's lagging behind, she will wait, and she will, or like if someone starts to walk off, she'll be like, hey, come here, like, what are you doing? We're all going together. My sister-in-law recently got chickens, and Loaf just naturally was herding her chickens. And she would like bark at them if they tried to.
In the chat, I've got chickens. I need a chicken herding dog. Apparently,
Yep.
they are literal ankle biters. So they'll bite the ankles of the cows and get them into be like, hey, this way.
Yeah, and so she when she was a puppy, she doesn't do this as much anymore. But when she was because we'll just walk where she wants us to. She'll bump into you. But she will. She used to nip at our ankles to be like, hey, come over here. We're doing stuff.
Keep up.
It's very cute.
Together. But
so
if there's just two of
definitely.
You, how does she know who the herd is and where to herd the other one to? Is it?
Well, it's it's wherever she is.
Wherever she
like,
is, I need to herd you back over to that person.
If she wants to go lay in bed, she will sit there and she will whine at me until I go lay down in bed with her, which is very cute but also very annoying. So yeah, I would say all in all, I love corgis. I love the temperament. I love that they don't bark very much. She's an alert dog, so if she like hears something, she'll bark at it, but then I'll be like, shut up, it's fine, and she'll be like, oh, okay, and she'll lay down. And
easy
yeah,
to
train?
I guess like easy to train into behaviors you want.
So corgis are very smart, and because they're very smart, they're very stubborn.
Yeah, smart dogs are not necessarily the easiest to train.
But because she's smart, she knows what you want. And she's very food motivated.
She knows what she wants, what you want, and doesn't do it.
Oh my god, on camera, constantly, like whenever I ask her to give me kisses, so she'll give me kisses, whatever. But if I bring her on camera, I'll go kisses, and she'll be like, she'll turn her head the opposite direction.
I'm not a public display of affection machine.
She does not like being on camera. But yeah, she's very food motivated, so that's nice in terms of training. She will, like if you've got food, she will listen to you. And which is good for training. That's kind of the thing that you want for them. So yeah, I would say the biggest drawbacks of corgis are that they are stubborn and they are just at the right height to be underfoot that make you trip all the fucking time. All of the time.
It's like having a tripwire. Ankles, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's like having a tripwire. Like, she just like won't move, and I'll be like, Jesus Christ.
God damn it, Loaf! Smash.
But yeah, anyway, so definitely 10 out of 10 would recommend. I would recommend everyone get corgis because they're the best.
She sounds fun. Yeah, as looking at the moment for because we're getting a rescue, it's just a matter of whoever's at the pound when it comes. But as I say, a couple of weeks back there was one that popped up that was a tricolour corgi. I downloaded an app at the time because I was like, I don't know what that dog is, but goddamn, it's cute. And so I got an app where you can put a photo of a dog in and it'll analyze what breed it is, which proved to be pretty useful.
Nice. That's machine learning.
Yeah. Thank you to Infidel Castro, good name, for the follow. 22 cigarettes and Milo Anzu for the follow. Let's finally get on to talking about world building and the thing that you do for the majority of
D&D?
your time on
Can we
D&D.
talk about D&D?
Let's talk about D&D.
This is exactly how literally all of my streams go. Every single one starts with about an hour of me talking about literally anything other than D&D, and then being like, so D&D? Yeah, cool.
Should we talk about D&D now? I used to do, when I first started streaming, I used to do Robert reads, where I would read various novels and things, just like anything in the public domain. And then very slowly I would start off the stream and just catch up with the chat. and then be like, oh, how's your day been? How's everybody doing? Good. And then when I'd get to the bottom of the chat, I'd be like, right, cool, let's start reading. But as more people came into the chat and the viewership grew, it got longer and longer and longer, and it became this like running joke that I was racing them to not get an hour behind the chat. You'll never keep me chatting for more than an hour before I start Robert Reads. And then, of course, they did eventually get me talking for longer than an hour. So they were rewarded with me breaking that off into its own stream. I was like, all right, I'm going to be doing charisma checks, which is just me chatting and reading the chat, and ended up 2 hours behind. And then Robert Reads is a separate thing.
You are definitely good at reading chat, Rob.
Oh, boy. I would read everything, and I would answer them all, and I would go off on tangents, and then they'd be like, how far behind is he? And it'd pop up, and I'd be like, oh, I am 45 minutes behind the chat. Okay.
Oh, goodness. I think the most I've ever been behind in a chat is about 10 minutes.
Oh, I've been...
But I'm also...
I don't think I ever hit 2 hours, but I got close.
It's crazy. Yeah, I'm very... I'm
saying I did hit 2 hours once. 2 hours behind the chat.
Oh my god! I can't even imagine.
I'm not going to be answering anything that you guys are asking right now because I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to still be here in 2 hours time. I did a 7 and a bit hour charisma check once, where for 7 and a bit hours I was just reading the chat and answering questions and just talking about stuff.
Oh my god!
And yeah, that's like, okay. Bye then.
That's insane. Yeah, I so like for me, reading chat has always been like my like biggest priority over everything, and like I also read really quickly and I talk really quickly. So
I find that if you read too quickly, it's not how the artist intended, though. If I'm typing, I want a message read.
So this has been fun, Rob. I'm gonna go.
I want my message read slowly. That's the way that the artist intended when I was writing, when the author of the comment.
Listen, just, you can just tell me that you think I'm right, and you don't
have to go through this run around. Thank you, John Man Bear Pig. Oh, 9 months. We got a little Twitch baby. Thank you, John Man Bear Pig. What are we going to name our Twitch baby? Rob is all the sass. We haven't used that command in a while, have we? Have I not been sassy lately?
I just bring it out of you, Rob.
Yeah. So you read fast?
I do.
Were you gonna say? I couldn't remember. I kind of cut you off.
No, I was talking about. I was just talking about how chat is a thing that like, I don't know. I'm always astounded when I go into streams, especially like really big streams, and like, they're really really behind on chat. Like I'm just like don't understand how someone has gotten to that point in like streaming, without being able to keep up with it.
Well, just straight out called me out.
Well, okay, but to be fair though, you have a different circumstance where you didn't start as like a little baby streamer and grow to a big boy streamer. You kind of just started out as a big boy streamer.
I was born big boy streamer.
You were thrown into the deep end, so that's a little bit different, right? Like, I think that a lot of what streamers have to go through, like sort of like for most people, it's sort of a test of their mettle, is how do you talk for a stream for hours when there's no one in chat.
Nobody's talking. Yeah, I have. That is an experience that I've never had. I've never had like 5 people in my chat and have to somehow still talk for a bit.
If you have more than 5 people, you're in the top 95, or sorry, the top 5% of Twitch streams.
More than 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ. There's so much just shouting into the void.
Yes.
There's so many of people been like, I'm going to make a difference. And then how do I make my stream stand out?
I think a lot of it comes down to people who are successful streamers go, anybody can stream and everybody should try it and blah, 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 blah. And I find that really disingenuous. I think that realistically... like I used to think when I was, because I used to do video game streams. And so when I was video game streaming, I used to be like, oh, I've got this like sort of shtick that's unique to me because, who's into spooky stuff? And, who are the horror streamers? No. And I was like, and the thing that makes me unique is that like I'm my own individual, and I'm, there's no one who has a stream that's like me because no one has me, kind of a thing, right?
Yeah,
And
same
that
with
it's like, yeah,
every other
that's
stream.
true,
You're
but
unique,
that's every
like everyone
stream.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I watched
so-
I watched on your YouTube. There's a February 2020 recap
Oh
video or
God,
something.
yeah, I gotta take that down.
Yeah, I watched that and I was like, oh, okay, this is nothing to do with D&D. This is all horror streamy stuff and very different committed makeups, and like there's one with you like an old washerwoman with the hair curlers in, and there's
Okay, well,
there's
that
one
was
in black and
because
white
during
like horror costumes.
October, I used to, for every single stream throughout the entire month of October, I would wear a costume. And so that's what all of those were. Those were all different.
That's my gimmick. That's my
Well,
point of
okay, you
difference.
say that, but my Octobers did very well, sir. Because I streamed 4 times a week, and I had a different costume for like 16 streams. Like it was a lot.
How did you have the time to prepare those costumes and put them on and all the makeup and everything? Was it just like a significant portion of your day?
Indeed. No. No, it was not. It was normally about 15 minutes before my stream started. I was like, fuck. Although the first year I did it,
something.
I wrote out all of the... I have costume buckets, because that's just,
Mm-hmm.
My mom was a costumer and seamstress growing up, and that's just kind of a part of who I am.
Always had a dress-up box. Yeah.
Always had, yeah. I've got prop buckets and costume buckets downstairs. Not even including the stuff that I have for actually sewing and stuff. So I went through that bucket at the time, and I wrote down all of the different things that I had, and or if I wanted to get other easier ones, whatever. And then like I think I went to Walmart and grabbed some headbands that made it really easy to do some costumes and whatever. And and I did that. I had an old granny one when I was playing Dead Space. I had which was actually funny because the reason I have my hair in curlers is because I had done that the night before, so my hair could be pin curly for my D&D session, in which we were all dressing up like film noir people and doing like a film noir session. And so I was like, well, what can I do for my stream the morning before that? Oh, I know. I'll put a little scarf on and sunglasses.
I'll do my prep for the game. I mean, that's smart. That's multitasking, making the use of everything. Like people who like design art or anything like that, or painting or whatever, they can be like, oh, if I'm doing this and getting paid for it, but I'm also streaming my process as I'm painting or whatever.
Right, I can make more money while
making the most of it. Yeah, making like. Yeah. It's like kind of like feels like people who would sculpt and then sell the offcuts as well.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I've got all this spare stuff here.
So you started streaming as a variety streamer. When did you actually start like D&D streaming?
I didn't start officially full-time D&D streaming, like no gaming streams, until like last September or something, like last September. I had started predominantly doing D&D streams around like March or April of last year.
Right.
And had started doing D&D streams in general at all, sort of in like mid 2020. But that would be like
what did it start as? You were like streaming yourself playing, or was it like you do now with the world building stuff?
So I was originally a part of a stream team, and we moved that show that I was in over to my channel. And so we had that D&D stream on Saturday nights on my channel. And so sometimes, this is how I actually got started world building on stream, was I was like, okay, well, what can I do in, like because I had a stream on Saturday mornings, and I tried to raid into people who were streaming D&D. When I finished that, so then later that night they would potentially raid into our D&D stream, basically. And oh no, all of my industry secrets. So I would I was like, oh, I have a world that I've been writing and working on whenever, and I would do that occasionally on Saturday morning. Sometimes I'd play I did Saturday morning cartoons, so I would play some cartoony type games like Cuphead or whatever on Saturday mornings. But sometimes I would do world building, and then uh, that game that we were all playing in stopped. And
I like you say
missed
stopped and not ended, because like most D&D campaigns, they just stop. They don't come to an end.
Yeah.
They usually just
So
stop.
the thing is, of the videos that are on our YouTube, we've got 2 seasons of that show, and it has a really good ending.
Okay.
It is very complete, you know, whatever. We then later had like about 5 or 6 episodes that we did of like a 3rd season,
Yeah.
and we just never posted them on YouTube. Oh, Beanum, hi,
Hey,
sweetie
cutie.
girl. Hi, Potato. She does not like coming on camera. Oh, come here. She's just staring at me. She's like,
She's like,
no.
no, I'm not an idiot. I know what that means.
Stay.
I can see the
Stay.
red light.
Good girl. Here. Oh.
We get a jump up. That's all we get.
Oh, that's a
Aw,
good Beanum.
big loaf of
Oh,
bread.
that's my little potato. Mwah. Oh my goodness. Why don't you say hi to the people? Say hi to the people, Lovely Bean.
My viewers are at 1,600. That's weird. I don't know how that happened. Don't know
All
how
of the
that
people
happened
over
all of a sudden.
Kisses?
Oh,
Kisses?
She's like, no,
She's
let me
like,
go.
no.
I don't like to be on camera.
It's a good
Look at her tiny
That's
little
good.
legs.
Do you want a treatums?
What do you-
Treatums for the
What
bean?
does she get for treats?
There are these tender beef recipe little heart-shaped treats.
Hot.
It's like they smell like beef jerky. Oh yeah.
Nom.
Oh yeah.
What a good girl.
She is a good girl. That's my
What's up,
sweet bean.
Wabberjack? It is a Corgi Wabberjack, yes. And thank you, by the way, to Mythical and Mr. Fluffy Bunny, who seem to be having a cheer-off with 300 bits, 201 bits, 500 bits, 500 bits, just back and forth like a tennis match. I think Mr. Fluffy Bunny seems to have won.
Nice. So when that all stopped, I remember doing a stream on Halloween where I started making my witch class, and then someone asked, actually, Madeeps asked, was the change motivated by analytics or just a personal choice, doing what you preferred more or felt more connected with the audience? And I will say that, I had never played video games in my life as much as I did when I was streaming. And I used to get sort of tired of it because I'd be like, I love video games, but I don't want to play them all the time, and I really don't feel like playing a game right now or whatever.
Yeah.
I want to say bye to Loaf because she's getting antsy. Oh.
I'm glad we got to see you.
A boot. It's a little corgi boot sneakums. So there was a bit of a personal choice of like, I started doing that more because I didn't want to play games, and I was like, well, this is sort of something I could be doing and is fun, and I knew that those streams did well, and they sort of always did better than my gaming streams. Not always, but like tended to be better than my gaming streams. And so I started doing them more often until eventually it was sort of like my gaming streams are not bad, but in comparison are, a pretty significant amount of people less watch my gaming streams than watch my D&D stuff until I eventually just started doing it full time.
Yeah, fair enough. And do you do D&D stuff full time? You got an actual like real job, or
a big boy job?
Yeah.
No.
So it is just full time.
I do content creation full time, baby.
It's pretty weird.
Which,
isn't it?
hey, if you want to continue to support me doing content creation.
And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for all of these bits coming in for me. From this war that because I mentioned it, and I definitely didn't do this on purpose to kick it off again, like using some sort of psychology. Mythical and Mr. Fluffy Bunny have started this bit war up again. 1,000 bits, 1,000 bits. Classic Sam came in with 10 community subs. Thank you very much. Mythical thank you for 500 bits, and Mr. Fluffy Bunny with the 1,500 bits. Holy shit, that's a lot of bits.
Oh my goodness!
It is a weird moment, isn't it, when you go, this is how I'm gonna earn a living now. I'm gonna Twitch stream and stuff.
Well, it wasn't really so clear cut as that. It wasn't like I made the decision to sort of quit my job and really do this full time. It was I no longer have a job because I worked in a warehouse doing parcel shipment and distributor orders.
So what
Like
happened with that? I'm
physical
sure
manual.
there's no there's no job insecurity within the postage
You'd think,
sector, right?
but I actually was
During
working
this
at a
global
tabletop
shipping
company,
crisis or something?
and with all of the lack of shipments that were coming out of a certain area in the world for whatever reason that could have been happening, I was let go. And so I was like, well, guess I'm doing this.
Guess
And
this is my job now.
yeah, and I've never gone back. I have recently been debating getting a part-time job, nothing full-time, because I was working as a full-time employee for this company, but I have been debating doing that just because
It's a tough living.
it's a tough living, and I make pretty good money for people on, like, in terms of like how much people can make on Twitch or do make on Twitch or whatever, but it's not enough money to really fully support myself.
Yeah.
So things are very tight.
You're gonna live
And
like an artist.
yeah, I mean, it's the starving artist trope is the starving artist trope for a reason.
The life of a starving artist is kind of what the artist intends, though. So if you gave them food, you wouldn't be experiencing that starving artist in the same way that the artist intended them to be experienced.
Right, of course. Yeah, so
To experience their life.
they
in the way that
intend
they
to stay
intended.
starving.
If you do want to support either myself or Mendarii, you can do so in various different places. By watching the streams is one way to do it. Donations on Patreon, donations on here through PayPal and things, bits, subs, all sorts of things. You can find.
I do put sweet D&D content up on my Patreon every month.
So you can go and get subscribed on Patreon for a monthly thing, even if it's like, I don't know what your lowest tier would be, $5, $1.
I think $2 is my lowest tier. You don't get anything for that. That's a support tier. If you want that stuff, it's $5.
Yeah. $5 a month for monthly D&D content over on.
I put new races and subclasses and eventually a full blown class. I put actually a full blown rework of a class on there already. So all of that.
So this is segueing us nicely into talking about D&D. Finally.
Yeah. So Dungeons and Dragons.
Let's talk about your homebrew that you do as your main job. We've finally gotten around to talking about what it is you do for your main job.
And it's finally come full circle. Good. Okay.
Only an hour and a half into a 2-hour chat. So tell me about how do you pronounce your world? Otheria. Otheria is your homebrew world completely from the ground up. Is it based on Forgotten Realms or based on any of those?
Nope.
No, just straight from the ground. So what did you begin when you were creating it? Do you begin from the inside out or outside in? Like, do you start with like a town? This is going to be the town that and was it for a particular campaign, or you were just like, I feel like world building?
So in terms of if I do bottom up or top down, I will do bottom up if I am actively running a game, because if I'm actively running a game, I need to know what is important to my players and what's immediately around them. But if I'm not running a game, I prefer top down, because I like to be able to sort of go all over the place, and it sort of enables me to have a bit more of a narrative consistency across the board. Which is like sort of my biggest priority with world building is, and the reason that I do a lot of what I do is so I have this knowledge going into any game, and I can go, so it makes sense because of this thing and this thing, basically.
Because I find the same thing, that if you start with bottom up, which is sometimes a necessity, you end up with more of a patchwork quilt, because you're like, oh, the sort of what I kind of came up with.
I
for this
said this
town
thing here, and this
really
was
gel with
improv,
this,
and these two things don't make sense, and so definitely something that I prefer to do, in a more broad sense.
And what do you consider to be like the top of top down, like the origin of the universe, like what was there in the beginning?
my first thing that I did was I got a world map. That's the first thing. I was like, I need to have a map of where this place is and what it looks like. Because I need to know where I'm putting things and where everyone is and blah blah blah. So I got that. And then I was like, I wanted to do the origin of the people that were there. So not necessarily the origin of the universe, in terms of like, how did these things come into existence and blah, blah, blah. But I wanted to know how the people that you're playing as, you know, like the playable races or whatever, you know, the world that is inhabited, how those inhabitants got there. And I think that specifically with D&D, and in a lot of systems, but not all of them, obviously, figuring out who and or what your gods were is huge. Because yes, because specifically because gods have a mechanical impact. So you need to know what their relationship is with your setting, because that is going to affect how some people can play their characters and how they relate to, you know, all that kind of stuff. So it's funny that Mondeep says that we don't start with a fully functioning language. I don't have a language. I'm not going to say that I have a language, but I have written, I have a couple of different fonts that I've made of like scripts.
Oh yeah.
You've
written your own Dwarvish or whatever, like the different letters?
I have an Orcish script and this sort of other one that's kind of a weird side project. Those are my two main ones currently. But anyway, so I started because I wanted to play D&D, and I had tried to play D&D with people. I had tried joining an Adventurers League game, which was a mistake. I hate Adventurers League. The people that were there were great people. I have no issue with the people that I played with. Just the way that Adventurers League is and functions and how it works and whatever, I'm just not a fan of.
Yeah, it's a different type of feel to it.
It takes everything D&D out of the game that I love about the game. If I want to play something that's super rigid and pre-written and whatever, I'm going to play a video game.
The level ups happening at particular moments, and like having to keep track of the logs that you have to keep track of and stuff, and
not really being able to deviate from a module and all this kind of stuff. Like I remember playing, and me and my party were thinking about like stealing this one thing or whatever, and the DM basically at one point was just like, look guys, like, hey, please don't. Because it's not written in the module, so I can't do that. And we were just like, oh, okay. And just kind of, you know, like moved on and whatever. And he wasn't a dick about it or anything like that, but it definitely was like okay, so
game,
D&D is supposed to be about I can do literally whatever I want,
and the DM is going to roll with it.
And try
and get you back on track to what they had planned to do in the background. Secretly move you along the rails that are underneath the sand.
It's secretly,
so you think you're sandboxed, but you're actually like, oh, and now we're back onto the track.
It's like one of those kiddie rides where it's like, oh,
wow, we could go anywhere. Look, we're flying around and around in a circle like this. We're actually flying.
Yes. So I figured the only way that I was going to be able to play D&D was if I ran D&D. So I started, which actually didn't end up happening. My first instance of me playing the game playing D&D at all was actually I got to play in a campaign, but that's a whole other thing. And so the reason I started world building, it's very ironic because I was like, I don't want to learn all of the lore that already exists. I don't want to learn all these new gods and all this kind of stuff.
From the ground up. That'll be less work.
I will write it myself. That'll be less work.
We're the same person, Mendarii. We had the same when I was thrust into DMing very quickly into learning D&D in the first place. And one of my guys who was running a campaign, we got through like maybe 8 episodes or so before he got bored, as is his usual way. He always starts with some really fascinating concepts for like a world or like a story or something that we're going to tell. And then we get like 8 episodes in and he goes, He just peters out every freaking time. But he goes, would you want to take over DMing? And I was like, I guess, sure, yeah. And so I grabbed all the books and started reading, and then I was like, man, there's a lot of existing lore already. There's 40 some years of D&D lore with all these different gods and how they interact and all the different symbols for the gods and the days that they worship, the days of the week. There's 10 days in a week, and what are the days called and what are the months called? And it's too much. I'll just make up my own, because then nobody can like pull me up on being wrong. Be like, well, actually, Shantaea doesn't have the monthly whatever. You said it was spring, and Shantaea should not be whatever because
yes. So that is exactly why I was like. So it was twofold. One, it was like, this is a lot of work to learn someone else's shit, and I don't want to sit and study a fucking textbook trying to understand all of this stuff just so I can run a game.
Yeah.
That was one part of it. And then the other part of it was, I don't want someone to come at me and be like, actually, the Zentarum don't exist in that area of Waterdeep. They're actually over here. And I'm like, okay. I didn't want to deal with that. I didn't want to deal with any of that, I don't know, like naysaying. So I was just like, I'll have all my own stuff. And then if someone goes, actually, I'll go, you don't fucking know. This is my world.
This is my world. I made this up. And then somebody just gets really into your world and goes, but actually, you said that your god of cleanliness was shit. You can always
bold of you to assume that I wouldn't. Oh my god, you kept the fucking typo in there, you monster.
What? What are you talking about? I didn't. What?
An asshole.
What? You put it in quotation marks, so I had to copy it exactly.
I said something along the lines of this.
That is along the lines of what you said. Definitively, that is along the lines of what you said, and I'm glad you've seen it finally.
Damn it!
I posted it to Fancy and said, "Can you put this in the thing?" And she said, "Creatived," and I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, are we keeping it like that? And I was like, yeah, we are. Of course we are. Of course.
You're a monster.
Just leave Mendarii. You don't have to put up with it.
Alright, I'm gonna hop off. Everyone have a good night. Oh my god.
So make sure to head over to Mendarii's stream, everybody, because she likes to create her own world. So you started with the gods and deciding on the gods. Tell me about those in a nutshell. Like, did you start with a particular number, like a pantheon, or is there like one god above gods?
So I started with the lore of how the people got created. So basically, there was one god who was a celestial who came to this plane of existence and was like, I'm going to make people. And so they made people, and they made humans specifically. And those humans lived for like 900 years, living, thriving, expanding throughout the world, developing their own cultures, all that good stuff.
Methuselah, yeah.
And then another sort of powerful entity from a plane of existence called Bedlam, which it's kind of sort of the abyss, kind of, but not really. It's a whole thing.
That's a question, real quick sidebar, because our talks are definitely always very quick.
Real quick sidebar, go on.
Do you use the general planar system, the cosmic wheel or anything? No?
No.
So you started it?
No, I do not.
When I started, I was like, I don't know enough about planar travel in D&D and things. That was one thing that I did take. I was like, all of the planes are basically the same, the outer planes. I came up with my own origins for them and how they interact and stuff, but the general makeup is still the cosmic wheel.
Well, see, I didn't really like the fact that it was like, okay, this is just heaven from Norse mythology and heaven from Greek mythology and the 9 hells from Dante's Inferno and, like, whatever. I found that kind of boring.
Right.
And not to say that I have them all sort of figured out, but I've got like a... I have there are 5 planes initially that are like big major planes, excluding the fact that there's also the Feywild, the Shadowfell, and I have to come up with names for those because I don't have different names for them, but currently they're the Feywild, the Shadowfell, and the 4 elemental planes.
Yeah.
I really want to get rid of the ethereal plane because I don't like it.
Okay.
But I don't know what to do with it.
How do you deal
because
with
of
all
the spells and
use it and
Yes. So that's something that I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do with it. But yeah, so you got all of that, and then you have the Astral Sea, and the Astral Sea obviously connects all of the sort of other planes to each other. So I've got
So you use the
God,
astral sea in that way, at least. You've taken the
kind
fact
of.
that
So
that's
my
still
astral
kind of
sea
the
is very
glue.
different in terms of like it's like a sea of it's like you know in the third Pirates of the Caribbean movie when they're like
Yes, I think.
sailing through like the Sea of the Dead. And it's sort of like everything kind of looks all one color.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like that, but like it's dappled with stars. It's like
Gotcha.
the whole entire thing, you know, whatever. But you sail through it like you would sail through water. Um,
Can you only go on
so
like 2 dimensions though, like in a sailing ship, or can your ship like sail up and down in it?
no, it's like a sailing ship. It's very much so like this is you can't fly in it like you do
Okay.
in the normal astral sea.
Yeah.
Um, and also the astral sea is also my space. I don't have space. That's a whole other thing. So I have the uh I have Kylus, which is my sort of like lawful good land of celestial kind of a thing. And then currently the other one's called Entropy, and that's my chaotic good
Right.
thing. Because from its actual definition of entropy, it's not anything negative, but people generally tend to assume that entropy is sort of like negative into nothingness, and so I've debated changing that. But basically, those are the two there, and I have two different kinds of celestials. I've got seraphs and nephilim, because I was annoyed that all celestials were the same, but then you've got fiends and you've got demons and devils, and I wanted to, have like a mirror. I wanted it to be even.
Yeah.
So I did all that.
Did you get Nephilim from anything in particular? Because that's what the demons are called in Through the Breach.
Nephilim is from the Bible.
Oh, is it? There you go then.
And it is they are Nephilim were the children of angels and humans in the Bible, which is actually what Goliath is in the Bible, like of David and Goliath. He's actually a Nephilim, so it's ironic that Goliaths are Goliaths because of that, but it's actually they're Nephilim, which are actually more like Asamar, and it's the whole thing. But yeah, so we've got seraphs and then Nephilim and then fiends and devils and demons. And I have the abyss and the nine hells. Although the abyss was called Bedlam at the time, and I haven't come up with a new name for the nine hells, but I want to change it. And then you have the primary plane, which was I referred to as the Scove. And that was basically like the Beastlands type of like megaflora, megafauna, big like overgrown area, whatever. And a entity from Kylus came to the Scove and made it, a haven for people or whatever. So then you have this other entity from Bedlam, who was sort of like ruler of the demons. And she was annoyed that this celestial had basically come and created all these people and had gained all this power, because that's sort of how my gods work, is that like they are more powerful the more people worship them.
Yeah.
And so she was like, okay, I'm going to create my own people then, but they're going to be stronger and better and more capable and blah, blah, blah. Even though she has all these demons that worship her, she was like, I'm going to make my own people, sort of how how this guy did, to worship me and do my bidding and make me stronger kind of a thing. So she made giants. And then she was an asshole, and so the giants were like, no, we're not going to serve you. We can fend for ourselves. Thanks.
But I made you! Yeah, but you also gave us free will. Damn it, that was my mistake.
Yeah, so she tore a rift between Bedlam and the Scove, which shattered Bedlam into 3 different places. And there was shunted off to one side, and this is where the giants went to. They went to Fragmentum, which is my chaotic neutral plane. Then the Abyss sort of sprouted and was what Bedlam was. That was where like the core of that kind of like pushed off, and that's my neutral evil plane. And then in its place left behind was Pandemonium.
Right.
And then to balance that out, the sort of other side of the cosmos, this plane called Brion came into order, and that's my lawful neutral one. And then another plane called Harmony, and that's my neutral good one. So I have like 9 big boy planes for all of the different alignments, generally speaking.
So you've still kind of used the cosmic wheel, but you've just made your own origins for.
I've made my own cosmic wheel. Yes. Yes, that's where all of that happened. So then there's this big, long, 100-year-long demon war with humankind and demons. And throughout that time, the other races were sort of created either through like magical rituals or infusions from the plains or blessings from gods or whatever that may be. That's how all of my other races came to be. So they all used to be human and then became some of them, not all of them. Obviously, there's still like a pretty big portion of them that are human, but that they all sort of became other races.
So like
different names
elves, dwarves, hobbits, they all came from human. Cool. That's a bit of a new take on it. You don't often see humans as the progenitor race. You often hear.
Yeah, I was tired of it always being elves and dwarves.
Yeah, elves, dwarves, dragons. So you're like, no, humans were there first. Screw the rest of you.
I thought that would be cool. I thought it would be interesting to be like, yeah, humans were like, have this sort of like connection to everyone that exists because at one point in time, that's sort of where all of the cultures came from was like the same starting point, basically.
Yeah. That's cool.
So yeah, so
you started with all of that. You started with the gods and the creations, the all of that world creation, and then you had. So is your plane Scove? Is that a planet? He said you don't have a space, so you don't have a planet.
It's not. So
a disc? Is it a plane? A literal plane?
So I kind of like to think of them. This is a really, really bad a metaphor, but like think of like a lasagna.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So lasagnas have layers, kind of
like onions. And ogres
but they all
buffet.
they can kind of mush in with each other.
Yeah.
So because this rift was torn during like at the beginning of these demon wars, there was a whole entire like sacrifice thing to sort of close that back up. So the abyss is closed off from the rest of the planes.
Right.
However, it left the entire thing in sort of a state of flux where everything's kind of sort of overlapping, and so in areas of like high similarity between the two planes, rifts will open up, and you can be walking through a forest that's super overgrown and sort of like magical, and suddenly you realize you've been walking for 3 hours
now
and it's been.
Now I'm in a lasagna.
Well. You've been walking for 3 hours and it's still like
plane.
dusk and the time hasn't changed and you're in the Feywild now and like that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I liked them being a little bit more coincidentally connected.
Yeah.
And those rifts can either be maintained or they will close. You know, they'll open up temporarily and then they'll just kind of go away.
Yeah.
And
so to get to the
all
abyss,
of that good
you
stuff.
need the pandemonium. What do you call your abyss? It used to be called Bedlam, broke into pandemonium, and
so it's currently the abyss still. I haven't come up with a name for it yet.
Fucking slacker. What are you even doing with your time? Jesus. Why is that?
Sorry.
I kept all the names for all of the outer planes because I was like, I'm not reinventing the wheel for the sake of naming. I'll just
literally reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to come up with names for everything at some point. It just, naming stuff's hard because you want it to be cool and you want everything to have its own very unique feel too. And so it's
like you said the plane of harmony, and people are like, oh, that's one of the good planes. You can instantly tell. Pandemonium. Oh, that's probably one of the chaotic planes. Yeah.
There's probably a lot going on there.
There's probably a lot going on in that pandemonium. Just turn up and there's just one janitor called Bob who's just like, hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I've been very busy cleaning it up. It's not as pandemonium anymore. I've got a lot of time on my hand in eternity.
It's just a broom closet now.
Just a broom closet. It just says pandemonium on the front, and he's just shining.
It's like scratched out. Yeah.
And done.
Oh.
That's pandemonium. No longer.
Incredible.
Then it just collapses in on itself, disappears.
No.
So the abyss. That one, to get to it, you have to have like planar travel, but all of the others you can theoretically get through portals and stuff to access.
So you can't get to it through planar portal. It is effectively like locked off at the moment. Because in this like war, they're like the humans / like humanoids after a while, were capable of holding off the demons, but they kept coming. And so the god that made them was basically like, okay, like he sort of sacrificed his hold on the plane, to get rid of this other god, and close off the abyss so there wouldn't be any more demons coming through.
Right.
And
I
disappeared
don't know how
for
I
a
did
long
it, but
time.
I've suddenly hit replicate. I don't know how to shut it down. There's too many copies.
Right. Yeah,
I'm just gonna
exactly.
I'm just gonna close it. They'll eventually like bulge and they'll just have to stop replicating because they'll run out of space.
Well, it's more like demons. When you kill them, they'll be dead, but then they go back to the abyss, and then they can just come right back. You know, like it was. So he disappeared for a while. And in his place, the rest of my pantheon, I've got 21 gods in my pantheon, and all of those gods, aside for the one, ascended to godhood.
Right.
So they were all like humanoids for the most part. They were all like just mortal people. Two of them were dragons, but the rest of them were all just like people who underwent this sort of ascension ritual during the Age of Ascension, and became gods. And those are the gods of my setting.
Why 21? Just because that's how many there were, or like is there some magic number about 21, holy number?
Well, so it kind of started out where I was going through and I was like, okay, I want to have a god of this, I want to have a god of this, I want to have a god of this, you know, whatever. And then I got to a point where I was like, oh, well, I've got, you know, seven gods here, I've got 7 gods here, or 6 gods here. No, I lied. I've got 7 gods here, I've got 7 gods here, and I've got 6 gods here, and I don't really like... What?
And if I just...
Yeah, I was just like, I'm just going to make another one, so, you know, whatever. So I actually go, instead of 777 like you'd think it'd be, it's actually 876. But a lot of that has to do with the fact that, like, one of the parts of the Ascension ritual is that you have to have, like, an amount of people who are dedicated to you, and, like, you know, like, enough to become a god, to have that power level. And so, generally speaking, it's going to be harder for a person who is, not impossible, but harder for a person who is evil to amass a huge following than it is for someone who's a good person, or like a neutral, middle of the road person.
What were the three categories that you evil, good, neutral? Is that
So I've got so we've got like lawful, chaotic, or neutral goods, and then we've got the neutrals that are all like lawful, chaotic. I want to have one true neutral god. I might have 2. I don't really like using true neutral for like a lot of reasons. But then I've got the neutral god. So I've got the, what are they called? I have names for the 3 different sections, basically, of my... I know one of them is the even-handed idols, and that's my neutral ones. I have the true gods. Those are the good ones. Then the even-handed idols, and then I have the hideous deities, which are the evil ones. So, yes, that's my breakdown there. Is like and all of the hideous deities are all some version of evil. And then, you know, whatever.
Man, it's fascinating stuff. I could I genuinely could go for another 2 hours chatting with you, but,
dude.
We're pretty much on time, and I've got to let you go, and I've got to go and help Lizzie with preparing the house for our housewarming party today. So
of course
can't go too much over. I will grab actually, I learned recently, because I'm a Totes Profesh streamer and I'm only just learning my commands. I've learned recently that I can do requests. Is it requests? And then I can open up my requests queue, see what the D&D questions are that people have been asking, and make sure that we've answered them all. DM Dave asked Mendarii, we already answered that one. More Deeps asked, the ship mini in the background is responsible for my favourite scene in NPC D&D, but did you write the scene because you had a ship, or get the ship because you had the scene? The former. I wrote I wrote it because I had the ship. Partly because I needed a ship anyway, because I'd written myself into a corner with the Dead Frost. They teleported in, and then they specifically it's isolated from the rest of the rest of the world, so you can't get in through regular travel. One of the only ways in is through teleportation or airships. So I knew that I kind of needed an airship to get out anyway. But then I got in touch with Wizards and said, hey, could you give me an airship? Could you give me that Falling Star ship for free, please? And they were like, sure thing. And so I got.
Isn't that nice for you?
So I made the most of that. Question for you both: when writing a campaign, do you have an end goal with respect to player level? As the consensus, high-level D&D is a different beast. It is a different beast. When I'm writing a campaign, I don't have any end goal in mind. I am open to the option of my campaigns always going to 20th level. How about you?
So I, generally speaking, actually like to cap my game. I don't normally like to play past like 10th level. Like if the story warrants it, obviously going up to like 11th, 12th, 13th, even 14th level of like, depending, as long as there's a reason why we're continuing to play. And I will do a level 20 game once in a blue moon, but my favorite levels to play in are 3 to 8. So when I think of my ideas for arcs and things like that, I generally go, okay, like what's a this tier level boss that I can sort of set up. And it also depends on what my party bites. I normally go, here's some plot threads of a couple of different things. What do you find interesting? And then sort of go into that and tie in some other stuff if I can, or, but.
How often do you actually, how often do you play? How often do you play and how often do you DM?
Not very often. I haven't been in a campaign since October of 2020.
Damn.
I've played in some one-shots. I've run some one-shots. I'm about to start running a game IRL, mostly so I can test out some stuff. Gotta test out my homebrew. Someone's got to play test it.
I know, right? You gotta, so much of my stuff that's on my Patreon, a lot of the shit that I've made, will building new items, new spells, new monsters, new playable races. Nobody's tested them. I just made them and put them there and was like, and
I
each
always
of my
go,
things
this
says
has
like,
not been
hey,
play-tested.
if you check it out and you've got any comments, let me know.
Yep. Yeah, that's basically how I am
Dag
too.
Dead as a Game is playing in one of my home games at the moment, and he is playing a Warforged monk with 4 arms, and he is playing the Warforged version, the version of Warforged that I made. I came up with my own version of Warforged because I came up with Warforged because when I started, a friend of mine was telling me about them from previous editions, and they didn't exist yet. Because it was before Eberron, and so I made my own, and then Eberron came out, and I was like, still kind of prefer my own.
That's funny. I don't like Warforged personally. It's just not my. It seems too steampunky to me.
Yeah, I'm not usually a fan of steampunk, but I quite like the idea of because do you use golems? Do you use constructs? Do you use magically animated things?
Yeah, but they're not sentient.
No. But that's what I like about Warforged,
the key thing
because
because
enough of the precursors already exist, golems and things. I find the concept of Warforged existing really interesting, and they're very rare in my world. There's like a couple of places where they exist, and part of Dag's story as his character is that he's existed somewhere else, and somebody's like, what the fuck is he doing here? They only exist in that city way over there. So I like the idea that at some point while tinkering with golems, they've somehow given them a soul. And where they've drawn that line is really interesting as a story development for me.
Yeah, I generally try to stay away from a lot of that because I don't really want to have the conversation of like what is and is not sentience, which is why I also don't really like the anthro races either. Because you've got, this is my anthropomorphic bear friend. There's also a bear just that's feral on the road. What is the line? I don't really know.
And then that bear is the druid in wild shape, which looks identical to that bear, but is definitely sentient.
But is definitely different. Yeah.
And
so
werebear.
So I'm not a huge fan of that. So I could maybe, if I really had someone who really, really, really wanted to play some kind of a Warforge, I would do like the, sort of Full Metal Alchemist. I've bound my living human being soul to a construct, and then like maybe, but like my main issue with them is actually a mechanical issue where I don't like the mechanics that take away your need to eat, drink, or sleep.
Right, yeah.
Because I like low-level games. And I like those being concerns. I like feeling human and real and having those real experiences of like, hey, you guys have been in a cavern for 3 days, and you're running out of rations. What are you guys gonna do? Because that's like
easy
a real.
enough to do with your Warforged. You just say that they need to eat.
I mean, sure, yes,
you need
but
to
like
recharge
rules
your
as
battery
written.
somehow, so you need to eat. So you just make that the
Sure.
change for the Warforged.
Yeah, I don't like robots. I don't want robots in my fantasy setting.
And fair enough.
That's it. That's the whole thing.
I
don't.
Classic Sam asked Mendarii, when you begin world building from scratch, where do you normally begin, or is it random depending on how you feel? Have you world builded more than once? Have you built worlds more than
You mean like different worlds? I have ideas written down for other things, but I've held myself back because I'm like, no, focus, focus on the one. But I definitely will, if I get bored of something, like if I've been doing mechanics too much recently or my brain doesn't feel like I'm there, I'm like, I need to do something that is more writing focused and like creative and whatever, and vice versa. I definitely, if I've been like designing a bunch of cultures and stuff like that for 4 days, I'm like, I just need to write some spells, man. I just can't, like, my brain can only do so much of this.
Yeah, I like the versatility in D&D of how much there is to do, so you can take a break without leaving world building. You can still be world building, but it feels like a break. Change is as good as a rest, as they say.
Yes.
That was all of the questions that were submitted. So we're pretty much done here. Unfortunately, well, we're far from done here, but unfortunately we're out of time. I will definitely have you on at some undetermined future date for a long rest, short rest part 2. Short rest part 2 when we've had a short rest. We rolled a few hit dice, and then we decided, man, we need some more hit dice.
Why don't we
so we're gonna have a
I need my spell slots back. Yeah. Why don't we do a long rest?
One of us is a warlock, and we've used both of our spells, and we're like, God damn, let's have a nap again immediately. So until next time, where can people find you if they like the sound of the world building that you've been doing and they want to support you?
Yes. Hi. Hello. So, I guess I'll do my little spiel. So, hi everyone. If you haven't been paying attention for the last couple of hours, I'm Mendarii. You can also call me Faye. That's my real life name. I am a D&D streamer. I do a lot of world building and homebrew writing for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons on my channel, twitch.tv/Mendarii, which is spelled Mendarii. I also do a lot of mechanic design and just kind of chill out and have a fun time. Currently, the only place that I publish my content is on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Mendarii. And it's all in my link tree in chat. I make D&D stuff. I put stuff up on the internet. Those are my main platforms, those two. I'm on other ones. I've got, like Rob said, I've got some stuff on YouTube, and I have like a single thing on TikTok.
And if you're in my community and you like the stuff that I do, because you're in my community, I assume so, go and check out Mendarii, because as you've discovered,
Rob and I are basically
we're the
same person.
So if Mendarii, if you ever seen us in the same room at the same time, this whole conversation was recorded. I just put on a wig and an accent and pre-recorded this whole thing.
Oh my god!
Have we ever streamed at the same time? Never. Interesting.
No.
If you're here from Mendarii's unshaved, I must have shaved. If you're here from Mendarii's community and you're new to me, I'm Robert Hartley GM. I'm a full-time dungeon master. I DM for the Viva la Dirt League guys on YouTube. And I run my own stuff here on Twitch and YouTube, and I stream a few times a week doing D&D adjacent things. I don't run any live play games, so there's nothing to... Well, actually I do, but it's an interactive one that you guys actually take a part of. On a weekend, I run a game called Twitch Tales, where you guys actually get to decide what happens with the character. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here, everybody in the chat. Mendarii, closing statement. How do you feel about Legend of Korra?
Oh my god, how can I summarize my feelings about Korra in like a very truncated sentence? I think that show is aggressively mediocre.
Aggressively mediocre. That's a good way to put it. Aggressively mediocre. I'm a fan. I like I like Legend of Korra. I like Avatar a lot more. But I think it's got
Again,
its own
I don't think
appeal.
it's a bad show. I don't think it's a good show.
It's
I think
just
it's
aggressively
aggressive.
mediocre.
I think it's got some really good moments and some really terrible moments, and most of it is, again, aggressively mediocre.
Perfect. A perfect ending. Aggressively mediocre is a perfect way to end this stream.
Much like this stream, aggressively mediocre.
Rude.
I'm gonna start a TV show that's just called Aggressively Mediocre, and it's just me talking.
Just aggressively like ragging on shit that people like playing paladins as anything other than lawful, or playing Warforged, or enjoying Legend of Korra. Should be like, well, no, actually.
I've got so many hot takes, but also at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what I think. I think that everybody should do things that they enjoy and have a good time. And as long as you're having a good time, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, precisely. All right. As the guest, do you have anyone in particular that you would like to raid that's online now? I'm seeing Quincy's Tavern's on. I'm seeing Table Story is on. The Welcome Inn is online. Late to the Show Entertainment is online.
I don't think that I really know anyone that's streaming D&D who. There's an artist that I like that's streaming.
Dag's on Quincy's Tavern at the moment. Yeah, let's go raid Quincy's.
Oh, let's go there. Let's go.
All right,
let's go bug Dag.
Let's go bug Dag. All right, Quincy's.
Can that be the raid message?
Tavern. Yeah, the raid message is something to do with bugging Dag. You gotta just.
Let's go bug Dag.
Let's go bug Dag. Raid Quincy's Tavern. Make sure it's spelled that right. Bing. All right, thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Thank you again to Faye. You guys have power over Faye, by the way, because she said, and I quote, "Faye is my real name." So as a Faye creature who's given you their real name, you now have power over them.
That is accurate, or so you think.
And until next time, I'll see you guys. Have fun, play some games, do all of the fun things. Make sure to stick around for the raid. Bye.
Bye.